thing I want to do. I want to combat my fear. So I decided I'm going to prepare for this competition. And by preparation, I do not mean speech preparation. I meant my anxiety levels. So I was wondering that this kind of fear, is it that common? Does everyone have it, or it's just me or just really few people? So on the internet, I found out a very interesting list of 10 common phobias, most common phobias around the world. And I would like to share it with you all. So the third phobia was the fear of heights, which is kind of common. I have that too anyway. Acrophobia. Second was something very obvious, the fear of spiders that most people have, arachnophobia. And guess what? What was the first phobia? That was social phobia. So any kind of fear that is related to social public. If I do this, what will Mr. X say? If I eat this, if I wear that, what will Mr. Y say? What will Mrs. Z say? This kind of phobia is what develops in children. But the good news is that this phobia doesn't kill anyone. It's just a fear blown out of proportion. And for that, I'm going to share something very interesting, an anecdote with you all. In 1998, like 1 year before I was born, basically, in Tennessee, there was this high school in which there was a teacher who was teaching. And she suddenly, all of a sudden, started complaining about a pungent gas-like smell. And she experienced symptoms of dizziness, headache, and fainting, and she fell ill. Soon, all the students of the class also started experiencing the same symptoms. And then the whole school was experiencing the same symptoms. So the evacuation center was called, the ambulance was called, the police were called, the fire station was called, everyone was called, and they were hospitalized. 38 people were hospitalized, and total 90 of students were kept under observation for that thing. And the government of the health agency, they decided to investigate what had actually happened. But extensive blood research showed that there was nothing. There was no toxic compound, there was no smell, there was no gas, there was nothing at all. And this was what was termed as psychogenic epidemic or psychogenic illness, where the fear of having a disease spread more fastly than the disease, the actual virulence itself. So this outbreak in Tennessee actually shows you the fact that people can get scared to the point where they can get sick when there is nothing to fear at all. So with that, I would like to say, I'm going to share, so I did some research basically, why we all have fear. What are the main reasons that the fear is so attached and there's nothing to fear about at all? When you're speaking, nobody's going to come and kill you, right? So what are we doing wrong? So I found out there are 4 major dominant patterns. And we see the wrong wolf. The wolf that is coward, that is not fierce at all, that is not brave at all. So the first was automatic thoughts. Whenever we're doing something, we always hear this chit-chat in our brain, right? There are thoughts that are going on. So there's this tiny center in our brain, an almond-shaped organ in the forebrain, that is known as amygdala. And that is the fear center of the brain. And if anything disturbing, it notices anything disturbing happening, it starts sending signals to the body, which allows the body to either fight, or either flee, or either freeze. And it is due to these that fear starts developing. Another reason is the basic instinct. We all are existing here, all major organisms, the vertebrates basically are existing because of the fact that we have fear. If I had no fear, like some predator would come and eat me up and I would be like, poof, gone. The species would be extinct, but that is so not the case. We are all living and existing, right? And that is because of the fact that we have some kind of fear. We know what to fear, what to run away from, and what not to run away from. That is not the reason. The third reason is that we all tend to paint the most terrifying picture. Something is going to happen and we know this is going to happen so badly, I know this how ends up. And we're just stuck on that negativity. If someone tells us, no, that is not how it's going to happen, but we have painted the most worst terrible picture in our mind that this is exactly how it is going to turn out. And the last reason is intellectual resistance. It's actually kind of like a law of physics, law of motion. When a body is moving, it keeps on moving. And when a body is stagnant, it keeps remaining stagnant. So, if there's some external force, then only it will start moving, right? And here, the external force should not be external, basically it should be within you. You should have the will to move on, to move forward. So, in this way, you should always try to encourage yourself to do something to move forward. And when you start moving forward, you will see there's no looking back. You would want to move forward and touch great heights and success. So, after all this talking about fear, lastly, I would like to conclude with the fact that what can we do exactly to combat this fear? So, I saw this person, Tim Ferriss, on the internet. He's a famous TED speaker, and he's a young technology investor basically, and a TED speaker as well. And he has been suffering from bipolar depression since a very long time. And this guy has a completely chalked out a plan how we can cope up with our anxiety. He gave us a method of journaling basically. So he says that you should do it monthly or daily or weekly according to your level of fear or level of paranoia. So there should be 3 sheets with you. The first sheet to say, what if? And you should write the most terrifying thing that you can imagine. What would happen? What would go wrong? And what are the things that you can do to prevent it? On the second sheet, then you are going to write, on the second sheet you are going to write the optimistic part, what right can happen. And on the third sheet you are going to write, what is the cost of inaction after 6 months, after 1 year and after 3 years. This is a very beautiful way to cope up with your fear. Lastly, I would like to conclude that fear has 2 meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything as rise. The choice is totally yours. And with that, thank you for being here with me. Thank you and have a great day, all of you. Thank you.